Hi, I hope you guys can hear me. Um, this is Britta Eski, and this is a Facebook Live Ask Me Anything about commitment and integrity. And it's part of the, which will be made into a new episode on our Getting to the Core podcast. Hi, Frida, can you hear me? I'm not sure if the sound is on. You just joined. Okay. Well, I'll just go ahead and hope that this is working. So let's just take a moment and presence. What do I mean by presence? I mean taking a moment to make sure that we are in what we call at core or healthy self. So we take a moment just to close our eyes and just be aware of what is happening right now in our inner world, physically, emotionally, mentally. Just taking a brief, it's almost like a quick inner weather report with yourself. How am I? Just noticing. How's my body? How's my heart? How's my mind? And is there anything I can sense right now? Like I'm sensing right now, just the chair underneath me and the ground, and just that feeling of I'm having my hands on the arms of the chair, which are wooden, and it just feels good. So just see for you if there's anywhere a good sensation in your body. And just breathing into it for a moment. Beautiful. And then when you're ready, opening your eyes. All right, darlings. So today is about commitment and integrity. And that's a big theme. I still need to know, Frida or whoever core is, can you guys hear me? Because I don't see the sound wave going. I'm just going to write to you. Okay, I'll just keep going. Hoping you guys can hear me. Sorry if you're listening to the podcast for this technical difficulty. So, commitment and integrity. So I have some great questions here for you. So one great question is very basic question. What is integrity and how does one be in it? And why does it matter? That's a pretty basic question. And so talking about integrity, a simple way of saying what integrity is would be there's an integrity with oneself and with the other, yeah? And integrity with oneself, I see as being in alignment with what is important to me and what I most value. And integrity on the outside is a simple version of saying what it is would be, I do what I say I'll do. I'm true to my word. So if I say to my husband, Lee, I'm going to take the garbage out tomorrow at 8 a.m., I'll actually take the garbage out tomorrow at 8 a.m. So I'm true to my word. Yeah, that's one way of speaking about what integrity is with other people. Or even to myself, if I say every morning at 8 a.m. I'm going to do a meditation for 20 minutes, then I'm in integrity with myself if I'll actually every morning at 8 a.m. have a meditation. So it has something to do with being true to one's word, because that is very powerful. Our word is very powerful. And it also has something to do with being true to one's most important values. I'll talk about that more in the next episode, where I'm coaching Lena on commitment and integrity. And it becomes very apparent that when she is in integrity, what's most important to her, she is happy, and she's actually more alive and more in her purpose, in her contribution to the world. And when she isn't, she is more miserable. And that's basically like this for all of us. When we're out of integrity, this is inner integrity with what is really important to us, we suffer. Yeah, so thank you for somebody telling me that they can hear me. Yay! Thank you, Heather. Hi, Heather. That makes me feel much better. So I have sometimes technical difficulties. So thank you so much. Great. So, and then commitment is the definition of commitment, or one definition of commitment is very similar to integrity in that we say we're going to do something, or put some structure into place, and then committing means we're actually going to do it. We make a commitment, we say yes. And why commitment is really important on the transformational journey is because what we usually do, and what there is something we call at core the survivor self, which is the part of us that is sort of defensive and gripping and tight. We could also call it the ego. So what happens is when we commit to anything, like let's say I commit to marriage, right? I'm committed to Lee, my husband, right? Now, which is wonderful as long as we get along and as long as everything is wonderful and we're having great sex and, like everything is romantic and stuff. And as we all know, that only lasts so long. And then I wake up one day and I'm bored with him, or we're having a fight or whatever. So that's when commitment really means something, so because I said, I will be with you in darkness and in light, like when it's great and when it's not great. Then I need commitment in the times when it's not great. It's easy to be committed when everything's going great, right? We all know that. But when it's not great, so when I'm having a fight with my husband, or let's say I'm committed to going to the gym, and I wake up and I'm tired and I don't want to go, that's when I need commitment. That's exactly when I need it. And sometimes it's that commitment that makes me do it because I don't feel like it. So being in integrity with, first of all, knowing what I value and what's most important to me, and then being in integrity with it, and then committing to the structures that keeps my life aligned with these values is all really important for those times when we don't feel like it, when the going gets rough, when, excuse my language, the shit hits the fan in relationships, or just in relationship with ourselves. Same thing with meditation. I might have 3 days, 3 mornings where, I'm sitting there for my meditation time and I feel wonderful, and on the 4th morning, my mind is going crazy. And after about 5 minutes, I want to give up because I don't like the feeling of my mind going berserk and me not being able to calm it or something, So that's when we need commitment and integrity with our word. Yeah. I think nothing would really happen in terms of personal growth if we didn't have these 2 qualities. I really think they're extremely important. I happen to think that all of the qualities that we're talking about this year, we have these 12 pillars for this year. They're all really important. So this one is too. So that's why it matters, because when the darkness hits, when it gets difficult, we need these 2 to pull us through. They're like a guiding light through the darkness, in our inner darkness or the outer darkness. Yeah. So I hope that answers that question. So let's see what else we've got here. Yeah, also a really good question. Why are both commitment and integrity so hard? And how can we make these concepts easier and more integrated in our lives? That's also a really great question and a big question. Yeah. So let's start with why it's so hard. That's kind of easy to answer. I just kind of answered that before in my little talk about what it actually is they are hard because we have an ego. We have a survivor self. We have a part of us that is not in alignment with what's best for us or for the world, or that is blocking our true expression, or the greatest way we can receive and give love, so because we have that part, which we call the survivor self at core, which is really covering the wounded self, what we call the wounded self at core, which is the part when we got hurt, so we come here open and available, and then something happens that hurts us, that traumatizes us, and we have built these defenses. And so by the time we're adults, we have plenty of those and plenty of stories that keep us small and that keep us limited. And so that's why commitment and integrity is hard, because something happens. So let's just say, again, I've told, this is a very simple story, but let's just say I told Lee I'm going to write the newsletter tomorrow, or I'm going to write a blog post tomorrow. By 10 a.m. I'm going to give it to him to check or something. Well, tomorrow comes along, I get busy, I get distracted, and I'm not doing it. I'm not writing this blog post. But then instead of telling him that I'm not writing the blog post, I get into my survivor strategies. I don't want to tell him because, let's say, I'm ashamed or I'm embarrassed, or that could be one survivor strategy, or another one could be I just don't like admitting that I'm doing something wrong, because I want to look good. So, or I tell myself, I really shouldn't be the person writing this blog post anyways. Why did I even commit to it? Or I just conveniently deny that I ever even said I would do it. So you can see in that way, when I said I would, and I said I do something and then I'm not doing it, what thought patterns are going on in my mind? Those are survivor strategies. Because the easy and in integrity way to deal with this would be to go to Lee and say, I'm sorry, I didn't write this newsletter. I said I would and I didn't. Just like that, undefended, just saying it, right? And then I could either say, I'll get it to you in the next hour. And here again, I need to really watch that I'm actually now in integrity with my word. I could also say, I'm really sorry for the stress that this causes you, that I'm not, I could sort of empathize with the impact that me not being in integrity would have on him. Yeah. That would even be better. If I wasn't defended, I would probably be able to do that. I could have empathy with me not being in integrity with my word. What impact does that have on somebody else? Yeah. And then I can just make it right. I can find a solution from my healthy self. Either I have the time to do it, or I'll get somebody else to do it, or there's no newsletter this week. So, if I was just in my integrity self, I could just find a solution without making myself wrong, or making anybody else wrong, or making writing newsletters wrong, so that would be in integrity. So integrity doesn't just mean doing what I say I do, being true to my word, but it also means when I'm not true to my word, which is inevitably going to happen. This happens for us all the time. Then just to say it, to go to the person or to go to myself or whoever I'm not in integrity with and admit it, say it. Yeah. Possibly even empathize with the cost this has, and then making it right, setting it straight. Yeah. So that is not easy, going back to this question, because of our survival strategies, because this means we need to be vulnerable, we need to be self-responsible and aware and conscious, which is not that easy. Oh, Gina, I see you joined just. Wonderful. There's Gina is here from the UK, and Gina is running together with Debbie, they're running the UK satellite, which is called Celebration of Being in the UK, and that's very exciting. So anyways, where was I? Yeah, with this question, why is it so hard? And how can we make these concepts easier and more integrated into our lives? Well, this is another really big question. And I could spend like all day talking about this. What I found is really good time management, like finding a structure in our lives, given how busy we all are and how many thousands of messages we get in a month or hundreds of messages we get in a day, like it's really hard to keep up with everything, so I think for anyone who's in the digital age and actually using it, we need to have really good time management and really good structures to actually keep us accountable to our word and to what is important to us and what we're committed to, because we get totally easily distracted. Yeah. So that's one of the things that we teach in our training, like in our leadership training, is how to deal with time. Because a lot of the reasons we're not in integrity or not true to our commitment is because we're just overwhelmed. Yeah. So it's a really, really important subject. And I know this is kind of boring and not so romantic and not so feminine, but it's super important. Really good time management and accountability systems. Like I have a weekly check-in with one of my girlfriends, and I have she's my accountability buddy. And every week on Monday, we check in and we talk about what we're committed to this. We remind ourselves, like, what are we really about? What do we want our lives to look like, and who and what are we committed to? And we have a certain system for that. And then what do we want to be accountable to each other this week? What actions, what steps, so a simple structure like that, to have a accountability system, some way of keeping one accountable. I find that incredibly helpful. It's also very beautiful to have that connection with somebody who gets to know you that well, and to be reminded every week, like, what am I about? what is, so for example, if I'm about opening to grace and meditation, but I never ever practice anything, like I never meditate, I never pray, I never go out in nature, I never participate in any ritual, because I'm so busy, then that's a nice value, but it doesn't show up anywhere in my life, right? So it doesn't make it in my schedule. It never shows up anywhere. It's just an idea in my head or something that I hold dear, but it doesn't really show up. Well, is that an integrity, right? Do I want to get to the end of my life and see I've just been running around busy, answering messages that weren't important, but what was really important to me, I never tended to, so let's say spirituality is really important to me. And a alive, vibrant relationship with grace, with God, with spirit, with whatever that is for you, the ultimate mystery. If that's a really important part for you in your life, well, you want that to show up somewhere. So we take this great concept and bring it down to the nitty-gritty of daily life, because that's where it matters, where everyday goddesses or everyday noblemen, that's who we are, right? So so that's what makes it easier. Awesome. So I'm just looking who's here. Hi everybody. Mervyn, I haven't seen you for so long. Awesome. So I hope that answered that question. What can make it more integrated and easy in our daily lives? Because that's where it really matters. Yeah. For example, also like, so let's go back to marriage, right? If I'm committed to my husband or my wife or anybody, really, could also be your children or your friends, whatever, but let's just say in marriage, if I've made a commitment to love you all the days of my life, right? Am I actually doing this? like to remind, I remember one person telling me every morning he looks at his wife. That was so sweet. He looks at his wife and he says, how can I love you today? Like that's the first question he asked her when he wakes up. Isn't that sweet? Like that's commitment and that's integrity with one's values, right? It's like, yeah, it's easy to get married and make these great vows. They're always so, when we make these vows, right? They're just so elaborate and so awesome, and I often think, well, darlings, you're gonna get tested on this. And we do, don't we? So if I made a commitment along the lines, I'm gonna love you for every day for the rest of my life, then, well, what does that actually mean? And how can so I personally made that commitment, right? So in my weekly check-ins with my buddy, I look every week on Monday, I look at how can I be a better wife and what can I do this week, to love Lee more. And it's a little thing, like sometimes I commit to acknowledging him once a day, right? Or I commit to cooking a meal for him on Thursday night or something, whatever that is, or to have a check-in Wednesdays and Fridays, or whatever would help our marriage build more intimacy. Or and it's really nitty-gritty little things. It's not like this great big whatever, so, which sometimes it's too, but mostly it's little things every week. So that's how it can be more integrated, and it can actually mean something. This vow I made, this commitment I made to him actually means something, and it's not just blah blah, or wonderful in the moment expression of something that doesn't really go anywhere. So this is how it can integrate by kind of doing something about it, or being something about it, So I hope that makes sense. I'm going to go to another question, which is, let me go to this one. How do you suggest discussing with someone you love their inability to be in integrity in a request you made of them? So, yeah, very good question. So there's us being in or out of integrity, and then there is other people in our life being in or out of integrity, right? So, yeah, that's tricky. So first of all, do you have an agreement to be in integrity with this person? That's a good question. And most of us don't. Most of us don't make conscious agreements. We make unconscious agreements. And most of us sort of expect others to be in integrity, but we never really talk about that in our relationships, what it means to be in integrity and what a process will be to restore integrity when there isn't one. So, or when there hasn't been one. So I'm just going to take a cough drop because I have a sore throat. So that's the first thing I would recommend is in your intimate relationships, have a talk about this. What does integrity mean? Integrity to your words to each other. What does this mean? And what would be a process if you're not in integrity? So Lee and I have this we have this agreement that if we're not, like to be in integrity with our word to each other, and then when we're not, to do what I just told you guys to do, which is admit it, come to the person as soon as you notice I haven't been in integrity with what I said, and apologize, and empathize with the, and I can see that this must be hard for you because you might be feeling this or that, or maybe now you're behind, or maybe you feel disappointed or whatever, to empathize with the impact this would have, and then make a suggestion to repair it, or to come back into integrity. So I believe that's really healthy, to have that agreement in a relationship, whatever relationship, friendship, business partnership, anything, and then you have something you agreed upon. Now, in most relationships, this is not the case, because we don't really want to be held to our commitments. We kind of want to weasel out. We want to give each other the opportunity to weasel out. It's kind of like, I'll let you not be in integrity, then I don't have to be in integrity, and we just both weasel out. Yeah. So, or we usually just look at how the other person is not in integrity, but we don't actually look at how we're not in integrity. So, all very human. So first of all, I highly recommend having agreements. Second of all, if you don't have these agreements, you could, and there is something that a person said they would do for you and they're not doing it, or you made a request of a person, which, by the way, just for everybody, a really great formula to make a request is, would you be willing to? So, would you be willing to, whatever it is, take the garbage out tomorrow? Or would you be willing to give me a kiss tomorrow morning before you leave? Or something, anything, yeah? So it's like, would you be willing to, is a great formula to make a request, because it leaves the other person a choice, versus just saying, can you take the garbage out tomorrow? Or why didn't you take the garbage out? Can you just please do it? Like, you always forget to take the garbage out. Those kind of things don't work so great. Just a side note. So, so if you made a request of someone, and then, so would you be willing to take the garbage out tomorrow? And then the person didn't. So tomorrow comes around and the garbage is not taken out, right? So, then what you can do is say to the person, first of all, would you be willing to hear something I want to clear with you? Yeah. So, just to go to the person and saying, you said you would take the garbage out and you didn't do it, and I'm pissed, or whatever, is also not so great. Asking the person if they would, I noticed the garbage is not taken out. Would you be willing to hear my thoughts and feelings, or my charge around this? If you get a yes, you could say, like you said, you would take the garbage out. The garbage is not taken out. And I notice I'm feeling angry, or I'm feeling disappointed, or whatever you're feeling. And that's kind of the impact of, you not taking the garbage out is, I feel this or that way, right? So, and because what I needed was trust, or collaboration, or whatever that was that you needed, that this garbage taking out would fulfill, so and then you can make a counter request, right? Would you be willing to take the garbage out now? Or would you be willing just to let me know that you heard me, that you heard the impact? Would you be willing to tell me the impact that this had on me? So that could build empathy. Yeah. So, it's much more tricky when another person is not in integrity, when you're not in integrity, because you need the buy-in of the other person. You need them to agree to this communication, because if you just charge at them with your defenses, which is what I could easily do, and I have easily done, when someone in my life is not in integrity, like especially like me, or somebody who I'm very familiar with, so I could just say, why didn't you take the garbage out, right? Never goes well. So never ever goes well. It engages the other person's defenses more than their healthy self. So you want to have a communication that engages their healthy self as much as possible and repairs this integrity breach. Yeah. So that's what I would say. And I'm going to do one more question. Let's see. So many great questions. I think I'm going to do this one. How do I balance being in integrity and staying true to my commitments in times when I've said yes too much? Great question. Along with that, how do I balance staying true to my commitments without going into shame or guilt? Can anyone relate to this? Yay! So most of what we do is say yes too much. Yeah, not everybody, but the pleasers, the workaholics, so this again goes back to our survivor strategies, right? Like if we've become a pleaser, if we've become a perfectionist, if we've become an duoholic, if we've become the savior of everybody, if we've become the fixer of everything in response to our childhood wounding, then we're going to be somebody who says yes too much. And that's also part of the structure today with all these incoming messages, that these overwhelming amounts of emails and Facebook messages and text messages and Instagram, this and that. One of the effects of this is that we say yes too much just to get rid of these messages. We say, yeah, I'll do it, and then we don't, right? So it's common to say yes too much, to overpromise, yeah. So and then one of our other survivor strategies could go into guilt about it. And shame, which doesn't do any good. Like it doesn't. This is really important to know when we're not in integrity with ourselves or another person, or not true to our commitments. The worst thing you can do is go into shame and guilt, because all that does, it keeps you still not in integrity with your commitments and make you feel even worse about it. So it's not good for yourself, and it's not good for anybody else. You know how you don't like it when somebody didn't do something and then for you, and then what they do is beat themselves up, and you're like, hello? Like you still don't feel like they actually got the impact that this had on you. All they're doing is sit over there, beat themselves up. No good. Yeah. So if there's just one thing you could get from this whole communication is not to beat yourself up, that would be awesome. Instead, here we go back to this formula. Own up to it. Go back to where you've said yes too much and say just that. You know, I've committed to this, or I've said I would do this, and I've noticed I haven't done it because I've basically said yes. I've said yes too much, and I've overpromised, and I'm sorry. You can also say this to yourself, yeah. And so let me just reassess this whole situation and come back to you maybe tomorrow, in 2 days, in 3 days, with a more realistic proposal. Yeah, would you be willing to give me that time so I can really come up with something that's more realistic? And here again, my accountability buddy and we check that with each other each week. Like when I'm saying, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do like every day, I'm going to work out for like an hour. And then she says, is that realistic? You know, like knowing you. And I'm going, no, it isn't. And so I go, like 3 times I can do it, or something, yeah? 4 times, or whatever's realistic for me. So here again, it's really great to have somebody else checking you, like so, and kind of pull you back a bit on these commitments, these overcommitments, yeah. It's just so good to have other people, like, because it's hard for us to see this about ourselves, yeah. So again, you can go back to whoever you overpromised and say, let me reassess this, you know. And generally, that's one thing I learned from one of my early coaches, like years ago, like maybe 20 years ago. I had a business coach And I had like no idea about anything, and just completely overcommitted about everything, and no idea about time management or anything. And she said, listen, like, it's much better in business to under promise and over deliver. And that's how you really, like, that's how you make people happy, just to say, I'm going to write 3 pages, and then you actually write 5 pages, right? Versus saying, I'm going to write 7 pages and only write 5 pages. So it's good to look like, and to know, generally speaking, we always overestimate ourselves. We think we can do much more than we can, and we think we have much more time than we have, and we don't account for all these things that go wrong and that don't go according to plan, that take time up that we didn't think it would take up, So so generally it's good to under promise, like really think about what you promise, and can I do this? And if it's like, take 10% down or something, and then over deliver, versus over promise and under deliver. So this was a business coaching, but now I'm applying that. I'm attempting to apply this to all of my life, to pull down a bit and go, great. If I can work out 5 times a week, great. But I'm just going to commit to 3. Yeah. Versus what many other people do, which is another survival strategy, is just they're going, okay, I'm not working out 5 times a week, so I'm just not going to work out at all. Just throw out the baby with the bathwater. Like, if I can't meditate 20 minutes, I just won't meditate at all. Versus just doing 10 minutes and then build up slowly, right? Like, this is another strategy. It's like we're kind of a little immature that way, right? That we go too far or too little. And this is about just being realistic and, one could say, prudent with one's commitments and choices, and kind of go along, and if you see, oh, I can make 3 times of a workout this week, maybe next week you can do 4. Or if you can make 10 minutes, maybe next week you can do 11. Yeah. So that is what I have found much more helpful. And I learned this the hard way because I was a serious overpromiser, and I've pissed off a lot of people by not being in integrity with my word. And I had to clean up lots of situations, throughout the years. So, and that just causes resentment and people not to trust you, and you're not to trust yourself, So my tip here would be, scale it down and build up slowly. Yeah. So wonderful, darling. So I have a few more questions, but we're out of time, and you can always post this on the Facebook page, and I'm happy to answer more questions, written questions. And I hope that inspired you somewhat. I know it's a bit of a dry topic, and a bit of a kind of more kind of, not so juicy, not so exciting maybe, but it really, really is exciting, actually, to put structures in our lives so that we can flow inside of them, because it's hard to flow when life is total chaos and you're always catching up and trying with your commitments. Yeah. It's the structures are actually like awesome, so that the part of us that wants freedom and flow and, then can have those times. You can even structure into your life those freedom times, like where you have 3 hours of just flow and there's nothing else to do. And so there's this balance between commitment, integrity, and flow. And my experience, the more commitment and integrity I have in my life, the more my life flows and the more free I actually feel. So I hope that inspires you to give it a go. Okay, sending you so much love. Bye-bye.